I would say that a huge turning point for me with all of that is when my art officially became a business. So it officially became a business when, and I can't take credit for it. It was my husband's idea. It's so obvious now. I don't know why I didn't think of it, but he gets the credit for it. He was like, "We should take your art and turn it into prints, and then people can buy it as prints." And I was just like, "That's ridiculous! Like, there's so many things out there. Nobody wants my prints. Like, just ridiculous." Like, but you know how we artists get sometimes. Like, we just get very particular about things, and I was just like, "I don't want to do that." And he's like, "Let's just try." And I was like, "Okay." Um, you try. I was like, go pick some art and then we'll just put it up. So he went on my Instagram, he picked like 10 pieces. And I didn't like anything of what he chose. So I went back and chose my own and I was like, okay, we're putting it up there. So in that moment, to our surprise, when I shared it, I had been sharing my art at this point for about a year consistently before I even started the shop. So when I started the shop and we started it and we started selling the prints, we sold out immediately. We added
Wow.
stickers, sold out immediately. And from there, my husband, who at the time was working in construction, was able to leave his job in construction and come full time to run the business side of my online shop. And while that is exciting, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that because suddenly the family income is dependent on this thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't mess this up. So what I do a lot of times, I've gotten better, but what I would do, I'm like, well, I got to figure out what's working. Okay, well, people are really doing that trend, or everyone's doing that. So to keep this going, I've got to keep up. I've got to like stay on top of everything. I've got to do this. I've got to do that, and that's exhausting.
Mhm.
Um, and what I am still wrestling with is Morgan. Yes, this is a business, but you don't need every single person to support. You don't even need all of your followers to support. Like, figure out the number that would make this make sense and serve those people. And any extra is it's a blessing. It's great. Receive it. But don't worry about trying to go viral every 3 seconds. Like, that's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. So yeah, I would say that was a long way to answer that question, but that is the biggest struggle that I have is trying to simultaneously manage this reality of like this is a business, like now we have like healthcare based on this thing. We have our salaries are based on this thing. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we have to exhaust ourselves trying to keep up with every little thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is a tension that I wrestle with
And
still for sure.
I think it's amazing for people to hear because I want to talk real quickly
Yeah.
about your business because you've literally turned this passion into a way to sustain your family, be your main income.
Mhm.
And I think it's incredible because you're feeling pressure. And if people, I know this is a common theme because a lot of people are like, how do I go full time as a creator? How do I become a freelancer? And to hear that you feel those pressures, I think is something that relieves other people to go, if Morgan's feeling that way, it's
Yeah.
okay to feel that way. But talk to us a bit about the operation of it because you're selling prints, you're selling books. And I know that you actually use your house as some warehouse. It's just like
Yeah.
literally you and your husband, isn't it? And I know you have some other help, but talk about that
Yeah. Yeah.
operation. What does that look like so people can see a little bit into that reality?
Yeah. So before the shop, my primary source of income was through various freelance projects. So I had started doing my first sort of like influencer thing that I did was with this company called Peace Tea. It's they make tea, and I did like this random act of kindness project with them. And then my second project, which was just out of nowhere, was with Coach, and it was for a nonprofit collaboration with them. And I was like, oh, I can do this. This is
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I love doing the freelancer collaborations, like as an artist, as a creative, and collaborating with brands. Love, love, love that. However, a lot of people may have dealt with this. Like, there's sometimes some gaps in between those collaborations, or it's just like, okay, wait a second. We got to add some more things in there if we want this to pay the bills. There's some
That's
there's
right.
some gaps on the calendar.
Yeah.
So I learned about this thing called cash flow. It's like, you need cash flow. Like you
Yeah.
need something that you're not waiting on, like, this check here and then this check that's going to come 3 months from now. Like that's really hard to live with that. So the shop came about as a way of like, okay, here's a way that people can support what I do in a smaller way. It's my prints are like $10, my stickers are $3. So let's just see what that does. So when we started it in March, April 2019, I had my son in May 2019. I kid you not, from March to, I want to say November, no, to the end of that year. From when we started in March to the end of 2019, it was me and my husband. It was literally, I'm talking, y'all, right after I gave birth,
Wow.
I was switching off with my husband, going out into the garage, fulfilling orders.
Wow.
I mean, I was like, and anybody who's given birth, like, yeah, that's the time you want to be sitting down. But we didn't have any help. And I was out there in the garage, in the sun in California. We were rotating with the baby, going out into the garage. And since then, we have been able to have more team members. So we now have someone who helps fulfill orders. And then we have someone who helps and working remote. They help with marketing. And we have someone who helps with emails and connections and all those things. So yeah, now we have a team.
Wow.
And
But
it's
you had
super,
to build to
super
that.
helpful. Yeah, we had to build to it. And it was a lot those first few months. And I'm glad that we now have a team. And I would say that hiring a team for me, I hired around my weaknesses. I said, what am I not great at? I'm like, I hate spreadsheets. I
Every creator does, right?
And I'm like, I will sit down and email on my mailing list and forget about the mailing list for 6 months. I need to fix that. So that's how we hired the team. I was like, okay, what can I not do? All right, that's that's who we need. So we're so grateful to have, and we have another team member now who helps more with digital assets management. Oh my gosh,
Cool.
'cause I'm so unorganized.
Nice.
So now we're like organizing PSD files and we're naming things, and that's invisible. So I don't have to spend. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say. So I do a lot of licensing. Like I have like my art will be on a journal or something like that. And I cannot tell y'all the amount of hours have been wasted because I did not name my PSD file. And I'm going through archives upon archives trying to find that layer so that I can get the file to the person who needs it. So yeah, when it comes to getting help, like that's where you really got to figure out what your weaknesses are.
We've got a really good question here from Helgi that applies to the time between starting a business that's rolling and being able to hire a team.
Mhm.
Helgi asked, what's Morgan's approach to the business side of things, marketing, bookkeeping, rights management? For me, it seems to hinder my creativity. So in that period of time where you were managing that yourself, how did you find a balance where you were still inspired, you were still rolling while you had to spend so much time on things that were sucking the life out of you?
That's such a good question. So that's where when I kind of like all that started happening when my son was born. So that was like just adding to it of like, how on earth am I going to find time to create? Because it's like the creativity is what sustains what you're doing. So you have to find time to be able to do that. So for me, this is what it looked like. And I think it can look different for other people. Actually, I'm going to use my sister as an example because she's different than me. And this is how we both do it. So she's in a very similar situation. She's also a mom and a creative and very involved in the business side of what she does. For me, I have to wake up extra early. That's where I create the bulk of my work. That is, I figured out it's those early hours of the morning when the street outside is just a little bit more quiet and the house is quiet. I can get a good hour or two, sometimes even 3 or 4 hours, depending on how early I wake up, just creating. That is my golden time. My sister, total opposite, hates the mornings, but she's a late night person. So if we're working on a project together, I'll get something from her at like 1 a.m. sometimes because she's like, this is the only time I have. So I think morning or evening, I would say like if you're in that position where you're having to do the Zoom calls and the phone calls and the emails and all those things, try to find that pocket of the day where it's quieter And, you don't have to start with 4 hours. Maybe just start with 1 hour and see how that feels. Like, okay, I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning and I worked for an hour and this hour feels good. Like I got my coffee, I've got my, quiet room. This feels good. And then gradually build on that. So I'm at a point, this may be extreme for some people, but I'm at a point now where sometimes for me that starts at 4 a.m.
Wow.
And I will have that usually 4 to 7, which is nice. It's really nice. But again, you don't have to go 4 a.m. Try 5 a.m. So
the kids get up. The kids, they get up regardless, and they will.
Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't.
Once they're up,
want to wake up
in your face.
But yeah, yeah. I have had to learn how to wake up at all hours.
Yeah.
I actually learned this from a band that I traveled with years ago, who were I forget where they're from. They were from Europe somewhere, and they were literally doing a U.S. tour and a European tour at the same time. Like,
wow,
a week in the U.S. and then a week in Europe. And I remember asking one of the guys, I was like, "How do y'all do that? Like, that's got to be exhausting." He's like, "Don't look at the time." He was just like, "Don't look at it." He was like, everyone always asking us that. He's like, "How do you do all the time change?" She's like, "I just don't look at it. If I'm tired, I take a nap." And I'm just like, I'm gonna remember that.